some of the applications that these AMRs can help us solve.
Especially with autonomous AMRs, they are very good for being very flexible, okay? And it's kind of essentially moving goods from A to B, but how you do that can happen in a lot of ways. We have used the AMR to shift trolleys from A to B. We have used the AMR to put a conveyor on top. You can deliver parcels onto the conveyor and then deliver that parcel to another conveyor.
We're live. Well, welcome to our first episode of AutomateX Unplugged, where we, the hosts, Jordan and myself, will be discussing various technologies, various industries, how automation and technology is making an impact in our world, ever changing, ever progressing. So I'm Marcel, one of the directors at AutomateX, and
I'm Jordan. I'm sort of been responsible for a lot of the marketing and some business development up to date. So
excellent. Well, this being our first AutomateX podcast, this is just a bit of a trial run. So whether we get anything out of this of worth, we'll see.
Yeah,
really just want to get our setup working properly.
Yeah.
So for today, we thought we'll tackle the topic of AMRs. It's a field, or AMRs. I guess we should define what that is a little bit. So AMRs, that is a fairly generic, broad term for autonomous mobile robots.
Yeah, this one annoys me a little bit because the term AMR is interpreted different by everyone. You know, how you speak to someone about an AMR, is that following a grid? Is that autonomous in its real meaning? I guess that's what AMR stands for, autonomous mobile robot. And everyone kind of uses that in different ways. We see it used for grid-based AMRs, but they're not autonomous, right? They're following a grid. They're very much fixed, automated mobile robots rather than, So
it can be a fairly generic catch term for robots that are of the mobile sort that guide and navigate without anyone having to manually push it around.
Correct. Yeah. Well, I guess we called it mobile robotics for quite a long time.
Mobile robotics. That's right.
Yeah.
That's still the case.
Yeah.
So Jordan, would you mind just going through a few of the features, like what makes an autonomous mobile robot or an AMR, what it is? Can you just cover a few of its features for us?
Yeah. So generally, they have a LiDAR scanner on them. Some AMRs, they navigate using their LiDAR, and they basically bounce.
They bounce off walls.
It's funny. Some of the guys I follow that do podcasts, like they cut their bloopers out, but then eventually they left it in, and he was explaining one day that he actually got better because he left it in the in, and that forced him to learn as he watched his videos back. So they will always be, I guess this is where the breakdown between different AMR vehicles really makes that question quite hard to answer. Because if we're talking a grid-based AMR, you have different technology on a vehicle like that. You've got servo motors. The vehicles always have servo motors on them, so I guess they can position themselves accurately
for the motion of it. Yeah. The drivetrain, the navigation.
The drivetrain navigation. With the autonomous mobile robots, AMRs, they use LiDAR scanners. Now, the LiDAR scanners will be used so that the robot knows where they are. So you can have a whole bunch of them that work off the same map, and they're all LiDAR scanning constantly. Now, the benefits of those type of AMRs is that you can actually use those around humans, right? If we're talking a grid-based AMR, which is not really autonomous.
So when you say grid-based AMR, you mean that there are navigation markers on the floor?
On the floor.
And the AMRs would pick up those markers and use that as its navigation?
Correct. Yep.
As opposed to using laser range technology to find its location within a certain map.
Exactly. And with those types of AMRs, they often using QR codes on the floor, or they're often sometimes called nodes. And they'll arrive in a node. It's got a coordinate that is feedback from the QR number, and then they know where they are, right? So they'll get to a QR code. They'll decide if they're continuing or if they're turning, and at that point they'll carry on at 90-degree angles.
So they know where they are at the moment. They know where they need to go, and then based on the software that sits in the background, it'll help the robot navigate or make the decisions of where to go next.
Where to go. Yep.
And I can imagine with some of these systems, there'll be quite a lot of robots operating on the same grid. So there's an element of coordination that needs to happen. So yes, tell us a little bit about that side of it.
So sitting behind every AMR is a good RCS, robot control system, or a traffic control management system. Everyone calls them different things. They have different acronyms. We won't bore you with more acronyms because, we have enough of them already. But basically its job is to tell the AMRs if there's multiple, where to go and to avoid each other. So there's obviously a lot of different layers, as we know, with all the other software, pieces of software. Usually the software that sits behind the AMRs is to tell the AMRs where to go and avoid them from crashing into each other.
The anti-collision.
Yeah.
Oh, very good. So yeah, over the years, there's certainly been an evolution in the technology that drives these AMRs. Like we all saw the little line follow robots that they just follow that line, but they're quite restrictive. And as you mentioned earlier, now the technology has progressed to such an extent that it uses LiDAR technology to both map out its environment and also to find out where it is and navigate in real time.
Yeah.
So what are some of the benefits of the fixed guidance vehicles versus the more flexible LiDAR guided vehicles?
Yeah, well, with LiDAR guided, they are typically better for working around human beings. So what I mean by that is the LiDAR is there also as a safety mechanism. So if I tell an AMR to move from A to B and there's a bunch of workers, there's things on the floor, the AMR can navigate its way through those. And if someone walks in front of the AMR, it'll trip. These have some pretty high level safety sensors on them.
Yeah.
They have a high safety rating on them, usually Cat 3. And I guess that's so they can be implemented all around the world, right? They have to fit in standards in Europe, in America, and also Asia. So those robots are very autonomous, whereas your other grid-based AMRs are not as safe. So they also do have sensors on them, but they are not necessarily safety-rated sensors. Yeah. So we're saying we're talking grid-based AMRs. We want those to be behind a cage, right?
So they're usually fenced off to some extent to keep people from just wandering into the robot's grid and run over by a whole bunch of little AMRs. Fantastic. Well, let's shift a little bit. So that's kind of the technology, what it is, what is it actually used for? Like, what are some of the applications that these AMRs can help us solve?
Also, another very big question to answer, right? Especially with autonomous AMRs, they are very, very good for being very flexible. Okay, and it's kind of essentially moving goods from A to B, but how you do that can happen in a lot of ways. We have used the AMR to shift trolleys from A to B. We have used the AMR to put a conveyor on top. You can deliver parcels onto the conveyor and then deliver that parcel to another conveyor. They can often cut out conveyors and that can mean parcels, packages, other goods. Pallets is a big one for AMRs. We shift a lot of pallets with AMRs in the many installations we've done. But yeah, it's really a game changer in the sense that you can free up space where you would have miles of conveyors. You can have AMRs doing that same job. So
that really lends you flexibility with your warehousing operation or your manufacturing operation, rather than having a whole bunch of fixed automation in place with fixed material handling, conveying. It gives you a lot of flexibility from where you need to pick up to where you need to go drop off.
Yeah, correct.
So very good. The evolution of technology, especially in that automated warehouse space, like what we see today is a lot of manual operations going on. You have people manually picking shelves, packing pallets, moving goods all through a warehouse.
Yeah.
And more so we're starting to have the conversations with clients around how technology can be integrated alongside their current operations. So how do you usually approach application where the customer is fully manual at the moment, but really needing to get to a point where they have started using automation and ultimately maybe being fully automated?
So for us, we always start with like, what is the customer trying to achieve? It's very easy to go in there and try to sell a solution. We've done it. We try not to. We look at what they want to achieve out of automation as the starting point. Generally from there, we have to collect all the data. We have to understand their application. We have to understand their environment. And then it's a case of looking, okay, what technology is out there that we can start to look at for them. Obviously, the challenge is often budget, CapEx. So we constantly come across a lot of businesses that don't have the funds available. So it's often a case of creating an ROI and going to a board of directors and internally trying to sell that to the company or the company directors. So part of our job is to make sure that the technology is correct, and then we give the customer the tools to be able to get that CapEx, get that approval. So,
because I can imagine that a lot of this really requires a whole shift in the customer's mentality around how they run the operation. At this point in time, it's easy to get some more team staff, and when you've got your peak picking times, it's easy to just rely on what you know and what you understand. But more and more so, to stay competitive, there needs to be an element of automation that you can gain some of those efficiencies and some of those fewer touch points, less reliance on manual labor. So very good, very good. So just looking ahead over the next 5 to 10 years, where do you feel this type of technology is going to make the biggest impact?
I feel warehousing is gonna be the biggest, have the biggest impact directly from AMRs. We're talking AMRs directly. Yes, there's a lot of opportunity and growth in that sector, especially in New Zealand, Australia. I think we've yet to see a big uptake in the technology in New Zealand, so we're quite excited about that. There's also a lot of reports that we've read and we've seen that indicate those things, right? That autonomous vehicles are going to be used more and more in warehousing. So warehousing for sure. Manufacturing is trickier. New Zealand manufacturing's interesting. Like it's always messy. It's New Zealand manufacturing is things have been pieced together over time. Usually factory layouts aren't ideal and some of those don't create a good environment for AMRs, but it's also an area where AMRs can have huge benefit, right? And we've seen them working well in manufacturing plants. It just has to be the right environment for an AMR. So yeah, definitely excited for what's to come in the future.
That's very good to hear. So slightly more personal question. So what got you into this area in the first place? What drew you to automation, mobile robotics?
You.
I think I was fast.
No, so I would say automation in general, or specifically mobile robotics.
Specifically, I guess tell us, how did you get to this stage where business development for AutomateX, business development manager for AutomateX in the mobile robotics and logistics space? Like, how did you get there? What drove you to this?
I guess initially we had some very early conversations with one of the AMR vendors, right? And I think at that time I expressed quite an interest in the technology. They were easy to program. I was like, sweet, I can do that. Plug and play. I can do this. Yeah, compared to programming Beckhoff IBC, it was quite exciting back then for us. And I knew I could make something of it based on what was happening in the industry at that time and what we were kind of feeling. So yeah, we kind of, I guess from that point on, went all in. AutomateX gave me the free reins to go at it, and I did. So we we're now here probably a year and a half later with quite a few AMR installations and a lot on the horizon in mobile robotics. And yeah, it's kind of a base setup for us to really go at the intralogistics market in NZ and AU, and Hopefully one day a bit further. So.
Very, very good. Yeah, it is. It's certainly a journey, ever changing journey when you're in the technology field, when you're in automation. So often new technology comes at us at a pace faster than you can really keep up. So there's crazy. Yeah, just cutting edge and really, always learn. Always be learning.
Yeah, and I think it's funny. Like you look back at the pathway we've taken. I guess we very much were pushing AMRs for a while until we kind of realized that we need to give the market what it wants. And in New Zealand, AMRs wasn't necessarily quite ready for that technology in terms of autonomous AMRs. Now we're seeing a lot of people in New Zealand wanting the grid-based AMRs, and we've been involved in quite a few of those so far. So,
do you feel there's a bit of what do you call it, like education required within the industry to really have people comprehend what the benefits of the technology is, what it can really bring to the operation?
Yeah, I feel that is the missing piece in a lot of this. Most logistic managers don't even know what AMR stands for, don't know what an AMR is, and so that's a big, that's really telling for where the industry's at, because like you said before, this moves so fast, this technology is moving so fast. Even people at the top of the logistics game are trying to keep up with the technology, right? And I guess we're in a very advantageous position where next to the suppliers of this technology, we're constantly trying to see what's new, we're working with it, we're putting the solutions together. So we are at a big advantage where we can learn on the fly, we can learn very quickly on
what worked elsewhere in the world with other manufacturers or other logistics operations.
Companies, and I guess like we attend events, we know what who's who and what's out there. So I think we get a real advantage as to what is the technology. But you look at a lot of companies, they're not doing that, right? They're focused on their business, and they're trying to get orders out the door and product in. So it's really our job and the industry's job to try and teach these companies about the technology. So, and once you've done that, once you get them to a point where they understand, then they're in a position to start looking at solutions and buying. So
I think you always have the reluctance to adopt a new technology if there's some uncertainty or some reservation around whether it's going to work for them and for the operations.
Well, it's the same with us, right? If we want to buy a new phone or we want to invest in ourselves in some technology, we do some research, and we're not going to go buy something without knowing what it is and what it can do for us. So it's the same for a business. They need to understand what the technology is.
My question is, so in New Zealand, our industry is smaller, our scale is smaller, our clients, customers are smaller. We don't have when you talk Amazon, you've got thousands of robots running around, sorting and moving and handling orders. In New Zealand, it's a lot smaller. So I guess my question is also, how do you see AMR technology in particular benefit some of these smaller operators compared to your big, expensive, fixed automation solutions?
I think that mobile robotics has really opened up the market, right? We've gone from this fixed automation, a lot of fixed automation, which costs a lot of money, and mobile robotics, as you can see with the likes of Amazon, has really opened up the market to a new way of doing things. Mobile robotics is cheaper. It just is, right? It's more flexible. All the things we promote about mobile robotics is it's scalable, it's cheaper, it doesn't require all the fixed infrastructure you have with traditional ASRE systems with cranes. And I think we really have this ability now to go to the small to medium guy and say, look, there's some ROI here for you, right? And whereas before you're starting at $10 million for a goods to person solution, you now got the ability to enter the market with anything above $1 million, and you've got yourself a decent ROI on a GDP. So
I can imagine that as the customer's operation grows and volumes increase, that they can just add more shelving or add more racking, add more robots, so it can kind of scale with the client as their business grows as well.
Correct. And that's like, you see that's typical of a small and medium business, right? They're often, their growth really affects them a lot. So if you give them the ability to buy a system at a young age and grow that over time, during a few years' time, it's a big plus for these companies. So whereas before they probably wouldn't have piloted the automation, they're now considering it. So
that's very, very interesting. Finally, I just wanted to ask you a little bit. So we're seeing a real surge of AI technologies really hit mainstream with our devices and our phones and our cameras, and you just see AI absolutely everywhere.
Yeah, it's the buzzword, right?
It's the buzzword, and I don't think we're going to get away from it. The technology is evolving and improving. Like these large language models are just going to keep getting better and be able to do more.
Yeah.
How do you see the likes of mobile robotics and machine learning AI come together over the next few years, or maybe it won't even be the next few years, maybe in the foreseeable future?
Yeah. Well, I guess these technologies need to be used in the right way, and we talk about AI. It's like I just said, it's the buzzword, right? But just with everything else, we're going to see AI become an important part of every part of our working life, and particularly our personal life, right? I guess we're already starting to see AI being used in certain parts of warehouse automation for AMRs.
I can imagine with a lot of the navigation problems that need to be solved, and possibly some of the coordination and the optimization of, I don't know, certain picking paths and storage methodologies.
I guess if you're just thinking of the AMRs themselves, the autonomous version definitely has some benefits to learning from its from like past pathways taken and maybe actions that the robot's taken that is taken too long, or there's definitely some AI that could help those sorts of things. I think on the grid-based AMR, that's going to live in a warehouse execution system software or a warehouse control level, where you're able to learn more based on the products and the product movement and where they're going. And but of course, right, like AI is there because you're able to learn and be better, and over time you're able to gain more data and be more efficient. So yeah, any company that's in the AMR space that's not making use of AI right now, either will be in the near future. Otherwise, I imagine they're gonna get left behind as with all of us with AI, right? So
I, for one, welcome our AI over.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, that probably concludes our little trial podcast for our first try. What do we call it? AutomateX Unplugged. Excellent. Thank you for joining me today, Jordan.
I think it's been fun. So
having you on our show.
Cheers.